This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
Hello, I'm Marcia Cavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Long rumored and frequently anticipated, a grand jury indicted New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell today. We will examine the developments. Elsewhere, each year when schools reopen, we hear lamenting that education in Louisiana needs to be improved. Well, this year we have heard comments from both the federal and the state level that might be happening. We will examine that. At the archdiocese, the math is intense as alleged clergy abuse victims examine the numbers for a possible settlement. We will look at these stories as well as the arrest of a police officer who already has accumulated a criminal record. Those stories are on this slate for tonight's Informed Sources. Errol, Laborde, producer of Informed Sources. Stephanie Riegel, staff writer, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate. Also from the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, Missy Wilkinson, staff writer there, and also staff writer Marie Fazio. All right, E, over to you, because the big news dropped this afternoon, federal indictment of New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell.
It reminds me when Errol Long was governor, he used to ridicule the whole process of grand juries and indictments, and he said, a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich if it needs to. And the argument has always been that the grand jury is just if the prosecution, that the other side doesn't really have a defense, that the prosecution is putting together its case, and the grand jury says, well, usually we agree. But this is one we've been waiting for a long time. It's been a couple of years. And usually they come out with their indictments on Thursday or Friday. So there's been a lot of Fridays where there's been a media vigil waiting for something to happen, including with this program, in terms of just trying to program it. But it finally came today, and it's a 45-page indictment, and it also includes Jeremy Vappy. But in terms of the immediate political implications of the idea of a mayor going on trial and the mayor being tossed out of office, regardless of the verdict, that's probably not going to happen, because I doubt if the trial, I know Vappy, who's already indicted, his trial is in January, and by January they'll have had the election, and in fact, Cantrell won't be mayor anymore. Her term will have ended. And so it probably happens, both the trial, and if she does have to go anywhere after, it'll both be, after she's in office, after she leaves office.
Well, this is history making because it's the first indictment that we know of in Louisiana, I believe, of a sitting mayor. And also this indictment is a superseding indictment to the indictment that had been handed down on Jeffrey Vappy, who was the mayor's security guard. And this indictment today that was handed down, 18 counts, is really centered on the alleged relationship between the two. So was this kind of surprising that it would only be about this relationship, do you think? And then, because there were other things being investigated as well. And then what about this relationship? Why is it contained in this indictment?
I think that it is surprising, because there had been some speculation, that Cantrell is public official one who is named in the other indictment involving bribery, and that she might be implicated in that. So it was surprising to look at this media indictment and see that it's just a kind of revisiting of all these years of we've been through as New Orleanians watching this saga unfold between Vappy and Cantrell. So, he, as you had mentioned, he was on her executive protection team, got taken off, got put back on, ultimately was indicted in July on wire fraud, and I believe also lying to federal officials. So it was interesting to see that pretty much the gist of the document is these people took public funds to cover up their affair. And also named in it is Ann Bro, who the mayor had slapped with a restraining order that was later proved to be bunk because she made allegations that were untrue. She had said that Ann Bro had 700 hours of video, for example, of that she had stalked her to take all these photos with, and she just doesn't have it. She couldn't produce that evidence. So there's kind of a pattern that you see of creating statements that are false, or at least that is what officials are alleging in this case, is, that she perjured herself, basically.
Right, and it was surprising to hear, I believe, that she appeared before the grand jury. And now there is a perjury indictment included in this, a perjury charge, also fraud, obstruction of justice. And the government is claiming that public monies were used by both the mayor and Jeffrey Vappy to conduct this affair. That's why this indictment against them.
Yes, and not only just using public funds for things like, flights and such and meals, but also collecting the payroll, being on the clock while you're conducting very personal affairs, allegedly.
And the new U.S. attorney said in a press conference this afternoon, this isn't about the affair. It's not about adultery or these public officials, but a sustained and long-term pattern, not just an occasional dalliance here and there, of engaging in this kind of behavior going on for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And as you say, like trying to silence the photographer Ann Bro, who took pictures of them at the restaurant outside, and things like that.
That picture she took, which is on the balcony at Tableau Restaurant, and you see the expressions on their face, and they're having a good time. That was a decisive picture right there. I mean, that really is something. That could be, I think, a huge part of the case. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like you said,
of all the restaurants in New Orleans, of all the restaurant tables they could have gone into, of all the quiet restaurants, to be out on the balcony across from where Ann Bro lives.
And the issue with that photograph was that Jeffrey Vappy allegedly was on his security detail, mm-hmm. and he was sitting there with a glass of wine in front of him as well. Mm-hmm. Stephanie?
But, the other indictment had alleged, like taking free tickets and all sorts of things like that. None of that showed up in this indictment. And they had also talked about other people in her administration. Mm-hmm. They didn't show up in this indictment. So it's almost like the government sort of refocused its case, or maybe the ticket allegations and the freebie didn't go anywhere, and they wanted to just focus on this because maybe they felt like it was a more solid.
Yeah, when you aim at the king, you can't miss, right?
The government is alleging also that the mayor and Vappy communicated through the WhatsApp, and that there were thousands of messages there that were ultimately deleted. So that's also contained in the indictment. There's a lot really that we're getting to know a little bit more and more as the day progresses, and I'm sure as the days go on, we'll hear more and more about this. At this point, we've heard nothing, from the mayor or Vappy for that matter. But it is certainly concerning. There's also concern about what kind of impact will this have mm-hmm. on the mayor's race. We're in the middle of a campaign for the next New Orleans mayor. What impact will that have? Any thoughts on that?
I don't think it'll have any impact on the mayor's race. I think people, first of all, Cantrell's not very popular to begin with, and so it's not like people are going to say, well, that doesn't, I'm going to vote for this candidate instead. The only impact she could have on the mayor's race is if she endorsed a candidate, and that would hurt that candidate.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's going to have any impact.
Well, it was a history-making day today in hearing about this, the indictment of a sitting mayor of the city of New Orleans, Mayor LaToya Cantrell, and we'll see what happens in the days to come. All right, let's move on to the next. And Stephanie, that's over to you, because we found out that the federal judge overseeing the clergy abuse case and the archdiocese bankruptcy case approved a document. It's just one major stage of this whole issue of settlement of these cases by these clergy abuse survivors. She approved it that now goes out to the survivors to see if they agree with the terms. What's in this document?
Right. So this is a very significant milestone in this case after 5 years and 3 or 4 months. A settlement plan that was negotiated and agreed to jointly by the archdiocese and also by the official court-appointed committee that represents the survivors. This plan would pay survivors as part of a settlement at least $180 million over several years as compensation for their abuse, not including money that would come from the sale of Christopher homes, the low-income apartment complexes that the archdiocese owns. That property is expected to kick another $40 to $50 million into the pot. So a total pot of around $200+ million that hundreds of survivors would be entitled to a share of if they approve this plan. Also in the plan are a host of non-monetary settlement agreements that the Archdiocese has said they will implement concerning safeguards against abuse and also sort of reckoning of past abuse, a database that would be housed at a public library, with information about all the horrible cases and the clergy members that were credibly accused and what they stand accused of. A public reckoning sort of thing. So this plan, and in addition to that, commercial creditors, vendors, businesses that are owed money by the Archdiocese would be paid in full. Bondholders that lent the Archdiocese some $40 million to refinance some debt several years ago would be paid back in part because they were not secured creditors. So you've got different classes of creditors. The ones that really matter are, of course, the hundreds of abuse survivors who now will have an opportunity to vote. The documents that go out basically explain this whole plan, explain the voting procedure, explain where the money will come from, explain what happens if it's passed, explains what happens if it doesn't pass, and they will have 2 months roughly to vote on this. Once you get your packet of information, it's sort of like a proxy ballot that you would get if you have stock in a company or something.
What are they
like
being
that.
told about if it doesn't pass? Aren't they saying if it doesn't pass, then it's all over now?
If it doesn't pass, it is all over. The judge has made that very clear. She will dismiss the case, and so $50 million in legal fees is pretty much wasted unless you happen to be one of the lawyers.
And that's the bankruptcy case?
The bankruptcy case would be dismissed. And for a handful of abuse survivors, maybe more than a handful, this would be probably good news because they would be able to go to state court and sue the heck out of the Archdiocese. And some of them would win very, very large judgments. However, the church is going to fight that. The church could turn around and file bankruptcy again. The appeals process on some of these judgments could go on and on for several years. I would bet down the line someone would win a large judgment. But the vast majority of the survivors would never be able to have their day in court. Look at how long it takes to bring cases to trial in Orleans Parish. And a lot of these people are old, they're sick, they may not be in a position to financially, to sue, and they may not want to. For a lot of survivors, this is horrific, and they don't want to go through the process of doing that. So, they'd be kind of out of luck if this doesn't pass. If it does pass, and the judge approves it, there will be a point system that will be used to determine how much each survivor receives. And that is standard for these kind of cases, and it assesses their damages, it assesses their suffering, and they get a specific amount based on the severity and the nature of their abuse.
And so if it does pass, then there is yet another court proceeding,
yes,
right?
And that's called a confirmation hearing. And at that confirmation hearing, which is going to be kind of interesting in this case, because there is a very vocal and prominent group of plaintiff lawyers who represent perhaps as many 75 to 175 of the survivors. Now, we have 650, so, you can do the math. But they are fighting to get the whole case thrown out. They want the case thrown out. They have alleged that it's been mismanaged from the beginning, that Archbishop Amon was not qualified to oversee the case or run it, that his top advisors were doing a terrible job, that they lied to the Vatican when they first they have 20 or 25 reasons why this case should be thrown out. And so the judge is going to hold basically the hearing on that motion at the same time that she holds the confirmation hearing. So there's a lot of discovery that's going on in preparation for what will essentially be a very long and sensational trial. And this will involve questioning the Archbishop under oath and questioning other top church advisors under oath.
And that would be if it happens, it would be
in late November.
Okay. Okie doke. Thanks a lot, Steph. Marie, let's go on over to you because the U.S. Secretary of Education visited Louisiana schools today, and she had some good things to say about some progress Louisiana is making in educating our kids.
Yes, so she paid a visit to Baton Rouge Elementary School on Monday morning. She was kicking off a tour she calls Returning Education to the States. The way she put it, she's kind of collecting a toolbox of best practices to then distribute to the states and education departments everywhere. But she specifically kicked it off in Louisiana because of the improvements that we've seen over the past year. The nation's report card, which is a metric that ranks the states in education, we jumped from gosh, we've been at the bottom of the pack for a long time, but we jumped to 32nd this year, and fourth grade readers earned 16th place, I think. So
That's
pretty
really wonderful.
significant progress. Cade Brumley, the state superintendent, attributes the growth to some policies that they put in place over the past couple years, including having all teachers trained in the science of reading, which is phonics essentially, and that seems to have been making a difference.
And so that's the method now that the state is using, and it's showing results.
Correct.
Kids are learning how to read better.
Yes, and we've also kicked some funding into what they call high dosage tutoring, which is basically just really focused tutoring for kids who need it the most. So, yeah.
You mentioned the Secretary of the Department of Education. That's the department that Trump's trying to get rid of.
Yes.
You cover education. What do you hear from the education, if at all? Should there be a Department of Education or not?
I don't know about should. I think it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
So Cade Brumley has said he's very supportive of McMahon and Trump's efforts to dismantle the department, and essentially that they say funding will remain the same. It'll just have less red tape around it.
It'll primarily be in the state's hands.
Correct. But if you ask school leaders, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear that there will be cuts down the road. If you saw this summer, there were the feds pay for a program, I think it's called 21st Century Granting, something like that, that pays for after-school program for kids who, low-income students primarily, and that's been essential in a lot of New Orleans and New Orleans area public schools, and there was uncertainty whether they would get the funding, and then it eventually did get unfrozen, so schools will be able to provide that service this year, but there's just so much uncertainty, and they don't know for how long, and yeah, there are a lot of questions.
So we're seeing improvements in what the state public education system is doing. Will this carry through with the private voucher, or what's called the Gator Fund, for those schools who receive those monies, those kids who go to those schools? Will that same strategy be employed? Will it be required? Do we know anything about that?
I don't believe so, because this is, private schools are a whole different ballgame.
Right.
I'm sure they're pushing their own initiatives and focusing on kids in their own ways, but they definitely don't follow state regulations, state policies when it comes to
Well, it
like
is
that.
good news that our students are doing better in reading, because that is very important to learning overall. Okay, Marie, thanks a lot. Missy, back on over to you, because we heard about a really disturbing story coming out of NOPD, and one of its own.
Yes, it seems to be the theme of officers abusing their power for sex, allegedly, which is what we saw in this case with a veteran French Quarter officer of the 8th District named Terrence Johnson, also known as TJ Popo, in the phone in which investigators found him listed, which was belonging to the woman who allegedly drugged, robbed, and killed the Kansas City reporter who was here for the Super Bowl in February. So yeah, just to backpedal, that is how he was implicated and ultimately arrested on Wednesday on 6 counts, including malfeasance in office and prostitution. So yeah, that's what he's facing right now. He had allegedly consorted with this woman to basically be hooked up with sex workers, but also was implicated in some more serious criminal activity. Not that that isn't serious. He was allegedly doing it while on the clock, sometimes in uniform. But he would also allegedly do things like, there's one thing named in the affidavit, he helped somebody out with a stolen watch. There was a woman who stole a $63,000 watch and then tried to pawn it, but then it came back as stolen, and so she couldn't pawn it. So then she basically asked him to use his force to intimidate somebody so that they would think that police were involved, and she would get the money from the $63,000 watch that she stole off somebody that was an intoxicated person. So lots of really upsetting, damaging stuff, and good that he's no longer there. NOPD is fast-tracking its internal investigation of this officer, but he had a very extensive disciplinary history too.
And so tell us some of the disciplinary actions that were taken against him.
Sure. So he, after joining in 1997, he had a pretty clear run until 2005. And when you look at his report, it's from the Public Integrity Bureau. His first citation was for neglect of duty in Katrina. He was AWOL, basically. And then between then and now, there were 46 different times that people raised the red flag about his behavior, and that came both from inside the force and from civilians. And he had been suspended at least 5 times from things like including neglect of duty. He also hit a cyclist while he was driving his truck, wearing his uniform but not in a marked unit, and refused to identify himself to this cyclist and left the scene. And so the cyclist went immediately to the 8th District Station, made a report. Basically, officers did an investigation and pulled video footage and realized, oh, this person was actually our officer that hit this guy, and he just got letters of discipline. He wasn't suspended for that.
So, you mean Superintendent Kirkpatrick, she didn't hold back anything, and you could tell she was very, very disturbed about this. And so right now, is the officer still on the force, or how long will he be
I
on?
believe that because, the criminal investigation hasn't concluded, he's innocent until proven guilty. I don't believe he's been terminated from the force. But Ann Kirkpatrick said that the Public Integrity Bureau is, or the Interior investigation is being fast-tracked so that they can quickly find out who else was involved, did anybody else know about this, and, to get him off, because there's a lot of probable cause around this. And not only that, when you look at this history, you kind of wonder how he was still a police officer after all this.
Right. All righty, Missy, thank you. All right, guys, we're going to go around the table right now. E, over to you first.
If you know the Eastern New Orleans campus, like that with the old beach, it's a research park, and they have a big ceremony. They're going to name it in honor of Bob Livingston, who was congressman at the time when it started. So it's going to be the Bob Livingston Memorial, well, not memorial, but research park.
Wonderful. Okay, Steffi, over to you.
The airport is looking at expanding and building now a second new terminal. There's some concern around the people in the neighborhood and key stakeholders that they're just not, they want as much communication and transparency early on in the process as possible. So.
All right. Missy?
So we're going to be looking at NOPD's recruitment efforts. They've got another event at the Baptist Seminary next week, but this time they're bringing the cast of Homicide Squad, the A&E show, and they've also signed a new marketing contract to create a campaign. So that's what's going on the police beat right now.
Okay. And wrap it up with you, Marie.
On Monday, students will return to the French Quarter for the first time in 2 years. Lycée Français charter school that currently has all of its campuses uptown is moving into the Little Red Schoolhouse on St. Philip Street. So we'll see how that goes.
That's such an endearing building. It's just so lovely.
It's beautiful.
All right, you guys, thank you all for being here. And of course, we always want to thank you for watching. And we want to thank you for continuing to support WYES and, of course, Informed Sources, stepping out, all of our wonderful programming here. And to learn more about how you can continue to support and how important it is our President and CEO, Robin Cooper.
Thank you for tuning in to WYES this evening. We hope you've enjoyed this program. We've got a very loyal audience that enjoys Informed Sources. And right now, we're here to ask for your support for this show and all of the great programs on WYES. Give us a call right now. The number's on your screen, or go online to WYES.org. Why is it important? Well, WYES was founded by members of this community, and it's members of the community that stand with it and help keep it strong. Especially in light of the recent rescission of federal funding, the loss of federal funding for WYES that impacts the local stations, for us that means over $800,000 annually. That's a challenge, but it's not one that we can't meet if we work together. So right now we're asking those who have stood with us so strongly, they've done it before, they will do it again and continue to stand with us. Please do your part, do what you can to increase your support, or maybe consider becoming a sustaining member at the monthly basis or as an annual sustaining member where it will automatically renew. With me in the studio is Dominic Massa, and he has more reasons for you to call right now.
Thank you, Robin. And if you're watching tonight, you know the value of Informed Sources. You know what it means to be able to look back on the news of the week and perspective that you may not get anywhere else. And Informed Sources is unlike any other program on local television. No one else does a show like this. No other station does a show like Steppin' Out, or even the local documentaries that Marcia, Peggy Scott Laborde, other producers produce here for WYES, and that cover issues and topics of relevance to our community. It's so important that we have WYES. It's such a valued resource in our community, but it only happens with your support. The federal funding isn't there. We know you are there. We've been gratified to hear from so many of you. If we haven't heard from you yet, now's the time. Please step up. If you're already a member, you might consider increasing your donation. Make an annual commitment to us, a sustaining commitment. Or if you're not a member and this is a time that you said, I've always thought about that, I'm going to support WYES, I'm going to support public broadcasting. Now is the time. Please take a moment to realize how much it means to you. You're here tonight on Friday night. The lineup has always been strong with public affairs and news programming. This is the time. Thank you for your support.
Sustaining membership is an easy, convenient, and affordable way to support the programs you love. Sustaining members make an ongoing monthly contribution from either their credit card or checking account. Just choose the monthly amount you'd like to give. Then go online or call and we'll get it set up for you. Your donation will happen automatically each month, so your support will always be current. If you want to change your sustaining membership, just contact us. Monthly contributions begin as low as $5 per month. Go online or call to start your sustaining membership right now.
Sustaining membership is one way to support WYES. You can do it as a monthly sustainer, or if you want to say, well, I want to set up my annual support. I want to make once a year, but I want to make it a sustaining membership so that WYES knows they can count on me and it's going to come. I want to set that up as a bank draft out of my bank account or via credit card. That's welcome as well. Or how can you do it? You can always send a check to the station. So whatever's easy for you is here and easy for WYES. We're here to make it easy for you to support the station that you value. If you're someone who can consider joining our producer circle, that's a special commitment of $1,500 or more annually. As a sustaining member, it's $125 a month. And that, of course, helps us more to meet the challenges that the station faces in funding. Give us a call at whatever level's right for you, whether it's a $60 membership, whether it's a $100 membership, maybe it's a $1,500, maybe it's $2,500 or $5,000 or $10,000. Do what you can to support the station who means so much to you and this entire community. Give us a call or go online to WYES.org. Thanks.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.